Well, I'm joined now in the studio by the health journalist Penny Taylor and the chef Mark Greenaway, who has two restaurants in Edinburgh, Bistro Modern, and Restaurant Mark Greenaway. Well, Penny Taylor, is it as horrible as its image?
Well, anecdotally, you hear people saying that. But interestingly, today, when I was taking straw polls of people, I spoke to someone that's a patient right now in the Golden Jubilee Hospital in Glasgow who was saying that he loves the food. And I was told by the NHS today that there's been a survey and 91% of patients around Scotland say they are satisfied with the food they get. It was conceded...
They might take the drips away if they don't say that.
It was conceded that there was great regional variation, though.
You were in hospital, weren't you? What did you make of the food?
Was
that recently you were in hospital?
It was 3 years ago,
right.
Just after a car accident. My mother was also is also a cancer survivor, so she was in hospital for a prolonged period of time. And we actually used to have to sneak food in because it was so unappealing to, her needs at the time, which, when you're at your most vulnerable, that's when you really do need sustenance.
What about your personal experience? When you after your crash, what did you make of it?
It was as you see on the walls. It really was sort of reheated, just horrible. It wasn't an enjoyable experience.
But do you think that's just you? Because after all, you are a chef.
No, I think it's a general view. I was on Twitter earlier saying I was coming in, and I think it's the sort of general consensus. But I'm not sure if it's a true reflection on every hospital, because I don't think it can be.
Yeah, well, because you said there's a big variation, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there is a big variation. I was on the radio programme this morning with the BBC Scotland Morning Call programme, and about half of the callers were saying that they had great food, but they were talking about their local hospitals in their communities, a lot of them out with the Central Belt. Yeah. I think some of the big problems are in the massive boards like Greater Glasgow, like Lothian, where, for instance, Glasgow has two what they call production units in hospitals in Glasgow that serve most of the other hospitals with food that is pre-cooked, then chilled or blast frozen, and then reheated on wards. And Lothian, their biggest hospital, Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, it's commercially confidential. We don't know where that food comes from because nobody will tell us.
Is that because it's a PFI contract?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I don't know, cooked fresh, blast frozen, reheated, that's not necessarily a bad thing, isn't it?
It's got to be. It is a bad thing because
Heston Blumenthal does
it's not. It's sous vide. It's not. It's you're losing nutritional value every step you take food. Right. You lose nutritional value.
So what would you do then if you were to take part in this competition they're running?
Yeah, I would love to. If any professional chef out there can get involved.
But what would you do? What would your idea be?
Cook fresh, simple, wholesome, almost homemade dishes that are obviously nutritionally balanced, looked at from...
But see, the problem is you've got Penny's point, which is that if you have a big health board, like a big city like Glasgow or Edinburgh, and you're set up in a certain way with, as you say, two production centres, you can't do what you're suggesting.
There are 17.4 million meals served to patients in Scotland every year. That's an awful lot of food.
It's a huge amount of food, obviously, but there's infrastructure in place. There is hospitals in Scotland doing this. Yeah. So why can't we use that as a model and roll it out? Yeah. How well they're doing it, I don't know. I've not been in those hospitals. But if they're doing it successfully, as the video was showing, why can't we take that as a model? They're obviously on budget. They're obviously... giving nutritional meals to the patients.
Can you do it for £4 a day, though, which is what some boards are doing it for?
What's their budget? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, also, I'm not quite sure what this competition is supposed to achieve. It was slightly confusing because is it supposed to be appetising food? Or nutritious food, which is not necessarily the same thing?
I think it has to be...
There was stuff about local sourcing. What's that got to do with it?
I think it has to be appetising because it can be as nutritious as you like. But if it's not appetising, you're not going to eat it.
We've made great advances in Scotland because we've got, in the UK, we were the first people to have guidelines for hospital food, believe it or not. We screen people for malnutrition when they're admitted to hospital, so they know there's a problem and we are doing something about it. And I think this food competition is actually a really good idea because what it's going to do is lead from the front. It's going to show the folk that aren't pulling the finger out and thinking about this from a patient point of view and encourage them to do that. Everybody's conceded there's a way to go, but hey, we're on that journey.
And I think if the competition's done anything, it's raised debate, it's raised this, you know, so we can try and get away from these pictures on the wall to something more like what we should be doing.
I also think patient power is going to have something to do with it, because I think people are starting to tweet pictures of their food, and they're going to drive this.
I presume that's what that is.
Yeah.
And as a restaurateur, that's what we get every single day.
Yeah.
People do come in.
Is that a big pressure on you there?
Tweet what you eat, and for us, it's great, because if we want to see the food that someone's doing down the road as competition, we just look on Twitter.
And frankly, you've got to work hard. Sick people don't necessarily want to eat.
Yeah.
You've got to motivate them. You've got to present food that they might want to eat and not mush.
Right, right. So just to finish off, you both seem to agree, what you'd actually like to see is a reorganisation. It's not just the menus, and devolve these centralised units so that each hospital, even if it costs a bit more money, each hospital would actually cook its own food.
Well, or at least be responsible for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have met a lot of people that work in NHS catering, and they are very often really brilliant people that want to do their very best for the patients in their hospitals. Let them do it.
Running out of time, but Mark, you'd agree with that idea. Devolve
100%.
as much as possible.
100%, yeah.
Right, okay, Luke, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both.